GeorgeNotFound did not do what he was accused of. The title of this video is a lot more one-sided than what is normal for me because I try to present the information in the most neutral way possible. Taking personal bias out is really important to me, but a look at the facts available paints such a clear picture that it's hard to ignore. Let's get into it. This is why GeorgeNotFound is innocent. GeorgeNotFound rose to prominence as a member of the Dream SMP, a group of YouTubers who would make collab videos together playing Minecraft. The group became extremely popular in 2020 during quarantine, and would continue that popularity for a while, with George's personal channel gaining well over 500,000 subscribers in 1 month during 2021. Although he would continue posting videos up until March 3rd of 2024, he had flown under the radar for the most part, but later that week, George's world would be flipped upside down. On March 9th, 2024, a small streamer known as Katie Bugs would go on stream and accuse George of assaulting her while she was drunk.
We were playing a drinking game and talking about sex, and I admitted to everyone in the room that I was 18 and that I was a virgin at the time. I remember back now to him answering questions during the game about back when he was 19 and when he was in college, noticing how my future was his past, and I wondered how he felt sitting so close to me. It was a little after that when I resorted to playing games on my phone when it happened. Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch in front of everyone. He disguised it with a simple, "Are you ticklish?" I coughed out a no, still staring at my phone. I was overly aware of the fact that we were in front of other people, the fact that everyone else was sitting around us, watching us, including my best friend, and that his hand was inching further to places I hadn't asked for it to be.
The language Katie uses here is very important to note. This statement of hers is phrased in a way that makes you feel the worst way possible for her, while also being very vague. To be fair, this alone does not prove in the slightest that she's lying, but the way this is being framed should be noted. If she's lying, then this statement she is reading has been specifically curated to invoke the worst image possible in order to garner sympathy. If she's telling the truth, then this is doing a great job of going into how badly this situation affected her. People quickly rose to Katie's defense and began to voice their displeasure with George. And one creator in particular, Max GG's, who was a friend of Katie's, came out and made his feelings on George known.
My friends, or anybody else, as a scapegoat for your fucking sexual abuse is disgusting. It's fucking disgusting, okay? My friend cried in my fucking arms about this, and you're on stream denying it all, denying the fucking hurt that you caused to her. You are disgusting fucking people. You and all of your abuse sympathizer friends, you are all fucking horrible. Seriously, you are so wrong for trying to displace this fucking sexual assault onto anyone but yourselves. You are a 26-year-old man, 27 now, trying to fucking put the blame on 18-year-olds that you don't fucking know. What the fuck is wrong?
When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
Wanting to stand up for a friend is a natural reaction for anyone, and this rant was clearly meant to lead people into taking this situation a lot more seriously. But this clip got the exact opposite response from the general public, with people instead focusing on his voice cracks and possible ulterior motives. George would then go on to put out a statement in the form of a pre-recorded video streamed on Twitch.
So then, this is when her most important claim happens. I'm just going to read the quote. She says, "Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch, in front of everyone. He disguised it with a simple, 'Are you ticklish?' I coughed out a no, and still staring at my phone, I was overly aware of the fact that we were in front of other people. The fact that everyone else was sitting around us, watching us, including my best friend, and that his hand was inching further to places I hadn't asked it to be. Again, as I mentioned before, we had previously been cuddling on this couch for around an hour, but I did place my hand on her waist under her shirt. The way it's phrased makes it sound like it just happened out of nowhere, when in reality we had been cuddling for over an hour at this point, and it was not out of nowhere."
George clearly goes out of his way to note his hand placement, which is going to be important later. The difference between placing your hand on a girl's waist and what Katie was implying is huge. This response slowly began to turn things in favor of George, but people weren't quite convinced yet. Katie would put out a response to George's VOD on Twitter, attempting to put the final nail in his coffin, but she would end up inadvertently admitting something that made her story seem a lot more shaky. Katie mainly focuses on the age gap between the two of them, which really shouldn't be the focus given that they're both adults. Finding the age gap odd is understandable, but assault is assault regardless of the age, so it doesn't matter. The main thing that stood out in the statement was what was not said. Katie does not at any point dispute George's claim that his hand was on her waist, which, as I said, was pretty important. She supports the claim that they were in fact cuddling, which is something she conspicuously left out in her original statement.
Out of nowhere, I felt him slip his hand under my clothes, sitting next to me on the couch in front of everyone.
This is why paying attention to framing is so important. Which scenario sounds worse? I was sitting next to this guy in a hotel room and then he shoved his hand up my shirt, or we were cuddling on the couch and he put his hand on my waist. Obviously the second one, and that is the one Katie is now claiming happened, with her main point against George being the fact that he did not ask for consent to do so. The question then becomes whether or not you think he needed to ask for consent to touch her waist. Come to your own conclusions on that one. In response to Katie releasing her Twitter statement, George decided to put out a video talking about his changed perspective.
Would have changed a lot. And going forward, this will be something that I take into account in every interaction I have with anyone, sexual or not. I am sorry, Katie, and I'm sorry for how this will affect you going forward, and I'm sorry that everything got to this point, but I just hope that after hearing my perspective, you can understand that I never had any bad intentions and never meant to hurt you. I think that is essentially all the information that I can add to the situation.
Apologizing in this way allows people to twist his words into the worst interpretation possible, but at this point, it doesn't seem like anyone's mind will be changed either way, so luckily for him, he won't suffer from this seeming lapse in judgment. Dream, who was the top dog of the Dream SMP and ostensibly George's boss, decided that it was up to him to defend George, so he opened a Twitter space to speak on the situation.
George didn't know, and he should have known. He should have known. And I think that's something that he has to accept and reflect on himself, and realize. I think that he has stuff to say that he will. I don't know exactly what it will be or what he'll say. I love George. I think that obviously he's been my best friend for a very long time. And that doesn't matter in the context of the situation.
When it comes to these situations, when a person has an impulse to give an emotional response, it's probably best to avoid giving into said response. Dream was clearly in no condition to speak out and should have been handling this behind the scenes. Jumping in the way that he did just adds to the chaos instead of helping to straighten things out. We never should have heard of this incident. There are a lot of things out there that are more important than someone being uncomfortable with their waist getting touched. It almost seems like Katie has some sort of outside influence who pushed her into claiming assault. I don't know exactly how much of Katie's story is intentionally misleading, but the fact that she doesn't even try to dispute that he was touching her waist and instead ignores it altogether makes it seem like she wanted this to be taken the worst way possible and outright say something directly, and funnily enough, people are still defending her. Luckily for George, it seems like his audience is still backing him for the most part, but this false allegation could still follow George for the rest of his career.